Hello folks and welcome back to my channel. A couple months ago I did a video detailing my experience healing my cheek piercings, and one of the notable things that I mentioned in that video is how strongly people have felt about my cheek piercings and how they have been like the piercing that makes people think that I am too modified or look too different. And in that video, I mentioned that I dealt with it a lot from romantic partners. And as kind of a throwaway line, I said, I could make a whole video about dating as a modified person. Well, it turns out a lot of you were really interested in hearing me talk about that, so here we are today. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my experiences in the dating scene as someone who is relatively heavily modified. And I am unfortunately going to let you know right now that it is not the greatest. Memes like this one really do a perfect job of capturing what it is often like if you are very modified and if you are dating, especially on like dating apps or trying to meet people out, and especially my experiences going to bars. I travel often for work and I am often alone on my travels. I have no problem going to a bar or a restaurant by myself, but I definitely do get approached by people exactly like this meme, almost word for word. Now, probably my least favorite part of dating while modified is the folks who will always ask oh, well, what else do you have pierced that I can't see? Oh, I bet you've got a bunch of fun stuff going on under there. Or looking me up and down and saying, is that a piercing that I see? And just people assuming that because you have modifications, you have genital piercings, you have nipple piercings, and basically fetishizing people who have body modifications. And this is a far more common experience than I think most folks are expecting. I know it was for me, like growing up, piercings and tattoos were not necessarily cool in the area that I grew up in, and while they were becoming cool, the type of work that I had, being more modified, having a ton of piercings, that was not cool, especially in like high school and early college. I was viewed as like weird or a freak for having all these tattoos and piercings and being interested in heavy modification work. So I kind of just thought that that would be what continued as I went into adulthood. And what I found is there were still people who thought that I was weird for having all of these modifications, but there were also just so many people who fetishized having these modifications. I mean, the amount of people who will like open up a message on like Hinge or Tinder with, I've never made out with someone with a tongue ring. What does that feel like? Or, what other piercings do you have that I can't see? Oh, don't worry, baby, I like the taste of pennies. And just people making everything about my modifications and in a very sexual way. And it's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, especially because for a lot of us, our modifications, most of them anyway, are not inherently sexual in nature. And also, just because someone has a lot of ear piercings and facial piercings does not inherently mean that they have piercings that you can't see under their clothes. I know plenty of very visibly modified folks who don't have any genital piercings, who don't have any nipple piercings, and it's just wild to me that people make that assumption and also feel comfortable just walking up to a stranger and talking to them about their genitals. And that is not something that people would do if you didn't have piercings and tattoos. Like the modifications kind of invite people in to talk about your body that way and to ask you those questions. And that can be really uncomfortable. It can even create unsafe situations, especially when it's happening with someone who's drunk out at the bar and can become belligerent or shitty with you when you try and brush them off. So dealing with that has definitely been a bit of a struggle. And also not always understanding if people were interested in me for me or if they were fetishizing my modifications as something like exotic or cool to experience. That I really noticed more of after getting my tongue split. That is, man, it's a great way to get free drinks at the bar, but at what cost? Because a lot of folks just want to say they've experienced it or they're curious about it. And a lot of folks are not actually interested, again, in like me as a person. They're interested in my modification work as a fetish. And it sucks. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you are very visibly heavily modified, or if you do opt to get intimate piercings and tattoos and things of that nature, you are gonna deal with potential partners who are really just doing it because they're curious about the experience of being with someone pierced. And for some folks, that's a pro. I have a lot of clients who get that work done, and they are excited about the fact that people are curious about their piercings, that it is a turn on for partners, that they can meet people at the bar and mention that they have piercings, and it might convince someone to go home with them. So if it is a pro for you, that is awesome. For me, it has not been. And it's really just been a lot of strangers inviting themselves to uncomfortable conversations about my body that I don't necessarily want to have with someone I just met 5 seconds ago at the bar. So definitely consider if you're planning on getting modifications, or you are more visibly modified and getting onto the dating scene, be aware of watching out for people who are just kind of looking at this as like a fetish thing, or just kind of interested in things about your modifications. And if that's not something you want, then don't hesitate to just kind of kick those people to the curb. I'm telling you, at the first red flag of people being weird about my modifications, I'm done. Like, I'm not talking to that person anymore. I'm unmatching them on apps. Like, I just don't have the time or patience to deal with that. Now, the flip side of that is almost the more difficult thing I've found to deal with dating as someone who is modified, which is partners who are not very modified and people who just kind of don't get it. I have had all sorts of different relationships with people who also have tattoos and piercings, with people who are in the industry, but also with people who have very few tattoos and piercings or next to none at all, or people for whom, while they have a couple small ones, it's not as big to them as it is to me, and as it is to others who are very much enmeshed in body piercing and body modification. And there becomes this kind of disconnect where those folks just don't understand some of the power that piercings and tattoos and modifications can hold. They can't fully understand how meaningful these things can be, how they can change your relationship with your body, how they can make you look in the mirror and feel beautiful or confident or sexy or valuable. The way that just one piercing or one tattoo can lift your mood for days or even weeks because you just feel at home in your skin. They just don't understand those things. And with that can come a kind of loneliness from having a partner that can't fully grasp how much those things mean to you and how impactful they are to you. Now, a lot of folks will still try their best and still be supportive of it, but it is a little bit lonely to have a partner not be able to understand something that is such a big part of who you are and of your life and of your gender expression and of what you do with your body. And that can be really difficult. And I also find that when partners don't understand how much meaning these modifications can carry and how important they can be, they're a little bit more comfortable trying to exert control over your body and framing it as a preference. And this is a very delicate situation to navigate because on one hand, I want to just say, like, hey, it's not your body. Like, you can do whatever you want with your body. So even if your partner goes, oh, like, I don't like that tattoo or I don't like that piercing, who cares? It's not their body. It's not their tattoo. It's not their piercing. Like, you got to get what's right for you and what works for you. On the flip side, I understand that people are allowed to have preferences aesthetically when it comes to what they like, what they find attractive, and what they like in their partners. And being in a relationship is all about compromise. And sometimes that means compromising about certain modifications you want, especially if your partner has like a good reason for not wanting you to get that work done or for being uncomfortable with it or just not finding it attractive. There are plenty of times where I don't wear certain outfits out with my partner certain places because they just really don't like the look of them or the style. And, we compromise with those things. We compromise with how we decorate the home. We compromise with our financial decisions. And so there is something to be said for finding a compromise when it comes to haircuts and color and tattoos and piercings and body modifications. But when one partner just doesn't understand the depths and the meaning that a lot of these modifications can have, It's almost impossible to have these discussions and come up with these compromises from a level playing field because one person is viewing it as just a purely aesthetic choice, and another person is viewing it as not just an aesthetic choice, but this meaningful, affirming, important thing to them. And trying to find a compromise between those two things can be incredibly difficult. And one of the big struggles I've experienced in my relationships is, on top of that loneliness of a partner not truly understanding what these modifications mean to me and how important they are, navigating those difficult conversations where someone is like, hey, I don't know how I'm going to feel about you getting a giant scarification across your stomach, or I don't know how I feel about you stretching your ears even larger. And it's hard and it's very isolating, and it can be very invalidating and kind of put you in a difficult place as far as how you want to modify your body, what you want to do with your own skin, but also the relationship that you're in. And I see it with clients all the time. We talked about cheek piercings being the thing that did it for me. Well, septum piercings seem to be the thing that do it for a lot of my clients. I see so many people who want a septum piercing so badly, and their partner is like vehemently against it. They are like, that is the one piercing that I do not want you to get. You can get literally anything else on your face. I just really don't like septum piercings. And no one has to like every piercing, right? It is valid for people to have preferences, and it is totally okay if someone doesn't like a septum ring. I personally love septums. I think they're so cute, but I accept that not everyone is going to. But I see my clients struggle in this difficult place where they do really want a septum ring, they really love how they look, but they also love their partner and they respect that their partner does not find it attractive. And so they wear fake ones and clip-ons and kind of still try and enjoy it that way, but they also don't want to implode an entire relationship, especially with someone they love and care about, over a singular piercing. And it's a very difficult situation to navigate. It is very hard to find that balance between what you want to do with your body and the experiences you want to have, and maintaining this relationship with someone you care about. Now, those are a lot of very honest negatives that I've faced dating as a modified person, but it's not all negative. I will say that modifications make for great conversation starters and great icebreakers. That's why all those memes about how tattoos are great conversation starters, so I regret ever getting any, come from. But they are, and they're a really easy thing to talk about when you're meeting someone or getting to know someone. And I find that a lot of folks find it very interesting and very attractive. More people than I expected to really like the look of more heavily modified folks. And I definitely think that was different like 10 years ago. I think that has changed a lot in recent years. But it is much easier these days, I feel, to go out and find someone and build good connections than ever before as someone who's very visibly modified. I also just think there's a lot more community and interconnectedness, and it's a lot easier to connect with similarly modified folks, whether it's tattoos or piercings or heavy mod work, and find people who do get it and understand, and connect with those people and build relationships with those people. And as it's crept more and more into mainstream culture, even folks who don't have a lot of modifications or any still tend to be more educated about it than previously. So I have far fewer repetitive baseline conversations explaining how tattoos and piercings work to people these days than ever before. So I do think, when it comes to dating as someone who's very modified, now is kind of the best time to be doing it, a significantly better time than any time in the last 10 years, I'll tell you that much. And there's also just a lot of sweet things that come along with it. I have had a lot of partners who, when I get home, will take my plugs out for me and will offer to massage my stretched earlobes, will help me with taking care of my tattoos while I'm healing, rebandage my hook holes after a suspension. And the process of sharing in those little intimate moments and getting to share these parts of my life that are so precious to me very directly with someone else are amazing. It's incredible, and it's very heartwarming to me. And I cherish those little moments of intimacy and vulnerability surrounding something like this that's so precious to me with someone that I love and care about. And especially like going and getting piercings together with a partner, or tattoos, or just sharing in that excitement and that elation together is unbeatable. It's like the best feeling in the entire world. So there are a lot of pros as well to, I think, the way modifications can bring people together and allow you to share some really incredible experiences with your partner. I just kind of wanted to touch on a lot of the cons that I've experienced because I think people should really consider the way that being visibly modified can impact every area of your life, not just from getting the modifications and the risks surrounding that, but how it affects your social life, how it affects your relationships, how it affects things like getting housing and getting loans. So I think it's important to talk about those negatives, but there's also a lot of really good positives, so I wanted to mention those too. If you are someone who is considering getting more visible modification work or becoming more heavily modified, I hope this video helps you think about some perspectives that you might not have considered. Thanks so much again for hanging out, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon. Bye!